I will normally start talking really loud. I'm very excited. This might be a surprise. I believe in Agile. I say that in part because I tend to speak to most organizations and most venues where people don't believe. So I will probably state some things that you take for granted, and probably state some things as well that will challenge your current thinking about Agile. I'm assuming that many of the people in here actually do Agile, but I raise a hand so I have some sense. How many people are here learning about it for the first time? All right. So let's start with the key things about the caveats about this presentation. I'm going to describe a bunch of things that work for us. It is unlikely that they'll work for you. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. My goal is not to get you to behave exactly like us. I am not an HR expert. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Menlo, also the Chief Architect. I have an MBA. We have legal counsel. They've looked at the stuff we do. But again, I'm not here to give free law advice. I can't tell you what will work in your situation. I can describe what we do and how these HR policies were accidentally born out of the fact that we use Agile practices. Right? Most of the things we do were not because we wanted to have a cool HR policy. It just kind of happened. So there's a whole bunch of different topics. My goal is to try and fly through them and give you all sorts of things to ask questions about. However, you should feel free to try and interrupt me and ask questions along the way, which I might park at the side, but I certainly won't bite or do anything nasty if you try to say, hey, wait, that doesn't make sense. Right? So there's some of the things you should hear about as we go through the material. It helps for you to understand my context. In 1999, I was hired as a consultant to a small company in Ann Arbor called Interface Systems. Interface Systems built printers for mainframes and sold them to the likes of IBM. What they sold was a very small printer, so you could put one in every Kmart where you couldn't actually afford to have a mainframe. So you could actually print stuff everywhere. Along came this whole internet thing. Their product now became a commodity and they didn't have value there anymore. And so they started a new idea, which was to take a computer, have it claim to be a printer, since they were experts on being a printer, and when the print stream came to the printer, convert it to PDF, because everybody now wanted to take your cell phone bill and put it online, right? The problem is most COBOL programmers on a mainframe do not know how to produce PDF. And the time it would take to rewrite all that COBOL code somewhere else to produce PDF is astronomical because you have all the old contracts you still have to service. Okay? So they wanted to transform their organization from a software team that supported a hardware team and had turnaround cycles in 18 months to instead be able to chase this industry that every time the salesman went to a trade show, the rules changed. Right? I mean, every single time, oh, well, here's what people think it's going to be. Oh, well, here's what they're going to do. And what they chose to do was to invest in object technology. This is a new, fascinating thing that came out long before 1999, but they've suddenly decided we're going to revolutionize our organization by adopting objects. We're going to move from C to C++ or Java. So they hired a consulting firm. At the time I was with Commerce One, when I was with AppNet, came in with a team of 3 developers. We engaged with their team, and after getting to know them for about a month, I went back to the VP of product development and told him, bad news, it's not going to work. If we teach your team objects, they're going to do the same thing that they've always done in just new syntax. You're going to get no difference in output. Now, this is a bad thing because I'm a consultant. If I go back to my boss and say, hey, good news, I told the client the $1 million deal isn't worth it, and they fired us, that's not going to look good for me. It's also not going to look good for the VP who got this deal pushed through, signed a $1 million consulting arrangement, and all of a sudden he says, never mind. Right? So Rich looks at me and says, what can we do to succeed? And so we talked about all the things that were going on. At the time, AppNet had purchased several other companies, and I actually started a very small firm that was loosely related to some of the folks working at the C3 project. So we knew about extreme programming. We started talking about all the different behavioral aspects that might actually result in faster turnaround in code. And so we decided to do a 1-week experiment and see if we could make it work. So we said, let's take all the programmers out of their offices. Nice oak doors, windows that looked out at the woods. They've been in these offices for 20 years. Some of them clearly look like it. And we moved them to the factory space that was no longer needed. We took folding tables. We moved out to literally a factory space, took away the assembly line. IT then asked, can we help? Can we put out some network? Now, I'm sophisticated enough to have gotten enough experience along the way that when somebody offers to help, what they're really doing is offering to extend your timeline. No, we don't need it. So our first network was floppy disks. Because we wanted to get to the value first, not through let's build out some perfect experiment. We moved the team out. Rich's 12 developers and my 3. We worked in a language they didn't know, Java. We started pair programming. We didn't use index cards, we used sticky notes for story cards. We stuck them up to the wall. We put food out in the middle. We did all the things that we knew the C3 team was doing. Or at least the good things they described that they were doing, which later we found out wasn't always exactly true. But sometimes the story is better than reality, and so we acted on it. When we moved out here, we attempted to rebuild 20 years worth of technology in 1 week. At the end of 1 week, we assessed where we were. We demoed it, we talked about it, and guess what? We failed. Now, many of the engineers were like, see, I told you it wouldn't work. Now, the VP of Product Development then pointed out, so during this week, did we get more done than you thought we would? The answer was yes, almost across the board. Were you amazed that modules that were built by these people that hadn't yet been tested with modules over here, that when we plugged them up for show and tell, they all worked? Yeah, that was kind of weird. Isn't there supposed to be bugs? Were you surprised when you actually paired with somebody who you've been working with for 20 years that they knew things that you didn't know about? Well, yeah. Yeah, I never asked them about their prior jobs or know anything about their other skills, or that they had a family, right? And it went all the way through this long list of all these things, and the answer was yes, yes, yes. And so Rich said, excellent. Everybody go back to your office, wrap up everything on your plate in the next 3 days, and we're going to extend the experiment by 6 months. 2 people said, woohoo! 2 people said, hell no, 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 I won't go. And everybody else was like, huh, interesting. Not realizing that they had just helped make the decision. Rich took the risk upon himself, but they helped decide by going through the criteria of, look, we're producing value. The 2 gentlemen who said no, 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 stayed back and they lived in their nice little offices and they continued to do maintenance. All new development was now done out here. Now, long about 1999, there was this little rumbling off in the distance, and beginning of 2000, anybody remember what happened in the IT industry?
Yes.
Kaboom!
That's right.
So, right before Kaboom, we were discovered by 2 California companies. AppNet, where I was working, was bought by Commerce One. In the same month, that Interface Systems was bought by Tumbleweed. At this point, we have IBM coming through and taking a tour, Microsoft coming through and taking a tour and saying, this is so cool, this is really neat. We could never do this. We're thinking, this is really cool, this is fascinating, this is great. We should be on the cover of magazines telling our story. Well, then the bubble burst, and the California CFOs thought, I know how to save money. We'll lay off all those programmers in Michigan, because Michigan is somehow expensive compared to California. I never really understood what they're thinking, but anyhow. And then the really cool thing happened. We're now unemployed. And then we get on the cover of a magazine. This is my business partner, Rich Sheridan. Because after we were unemployed, we decided, hey, we understand cold fusion. This XP thing really actually works. We should start a company that does that. So we started a small firm that does it. Now, everybody who sees this cover goes, wow, how'd you do that? They don't actually read the article because it talks about, hey, you're over 50, you'll never get another job. Start your own company. Right? So we started our own company. The other fascinating thing is it talks about, hey, we've got a $3 million company. Now, of course, nobody actually compared revenue to expenses. Sometimes the business magazines aren't as bright as you'd think. So we moved out of all the organizations that we had into, well, this isn't actually Rich's garage, and we weren't allowed to work in the garage because they had cars there, and Carol didn't like us working at the kitchen table, so that lasted about an hour. And we moved into the basement. So we have 4 business partners, no clients, no employees, no idea what in the world we're going to do. And what's mission number 1? Well, that's right. Well, Rich's wife knows that we have started a company, and she can clearly see through this thin veil. My wife saw me get up and go to work today. That means at the end of the week, she's expecting something else to come back. So, the first basic needs are our employees need to get a paycheck. Of course, it's the 4 of us. And we need a retirement plan, and a health plan, and a flex spending plan. So we go out and find the organizations to come in and help us set this up. Of course, we have no revenue, so the funding mechanism for this is somewhat painful. You end up taking money out of your wallet, putting it in the company, so that you can pay yourself, which causes you to pay taxes. A very exciting concept. You get to extend this model. We went out and we sold a deal. $1 million project with Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. Now we actually need people who do work. Right? I mean, we've got 4 executives that used to do work. We started a company. We're not going to do work again. I don't know how to do that. So let's go get some employees. And we start getting ready to hire them in. And then Pfizer pulls the contract. Now all of a sudden, a problem appears. What if I hired those people and had to keep paying their salary? That would be bad if there was no revenue coming in. So we quickly adapted the idea of maybe we ought to have a mix of both employees and contractors, so that as work shows up, we can add more people. And as work goes away, we can have fewer people. And of course, the first 4 employees were the ones that would stay employees, and the first 4 contractors would be the next 4 people. And then from there, we would kind of grow both sides. So this is our first facility once we moved out of the basement. It should look somewhat familiar to those who are practicing Agile. Teams working all together, lots of visible stuff on the board as to what they're supposed to build. There's story cards that you can't quite see on the other side. There's a whiteboard there, right? But a fairly small team. So now we're going to slowly increment our way up and try and build the organization. Now, we want to be a cool company, so of course you need a company dog, right? Now, actually, we didn't go out and get a company dog. This is kind of an accident. Somewhat of a sad story. This is Elaine. She works with she's a controller. And her husband passed away. Her children decided to get her a puppy. It makes me wonder what her husband actually used to fulfill in her life, but the puppy now has this problem because she lives 60 miles from the office. And the poor little puppy can't cross his legs long enough and pant all day long. So she decides she wants to bring him to the office. Okay. New HR policy has to be created. We now allow dogs at the office. Now, it turns out once you have 1 dog at the office, other people get on the action and say, hey, I want to be able to bring my dog. And now you need to extend the policy. Now, by accident, we kind of built a policy that looks a lot like Google's. If your dog barks, can't be at the office. Dog fights with other dogs, can't be at the office. Dog fights with humans, can't be at the office. And if your dog makes a mess, you have to clean it up. And if any of these things require your time away from work, you're taking paid time off. Because it's not really work, right? So if your dog can actually coexist in this environment, that's fine. And if your dog can't, then it's not an appropriate dog to bring to work. Okay. Clients now bring their dogs to visit us. It's really weird. Now, it's also really possible that while some client could yell at us while their dog's there, most of them seem to be very friendly when they bring their animals to visit us for a meeting. We like this. When we think of moving forward with HR policies, we don't actually think of the dog. That just tends to be what people, oh yeah, cool. We actually think of very simple systems that exist inside of Agile. So this is our work board, or work authorization board. What it is all the pairs are across the top. There's 1 week, because we do 1 week iterations, and a bunch of story cards. They're laid out where we predict that they will be completed. So this is an 8-hour story card. This is a 32-hour story card. And this team's going to work on it probably all week. They might get done early, they might get it done late. They put a yellow sticky dot on it when they're started. They put a green sticky dot on it when it's finished. The fun thing here, the empowering thing for an employee is they know what they're supposed to be working on. I'm an owner of the business. If I come tell one of the people, you should be working on this, you know what they're going to ask me? Where's my story card, and are you going to stick it up in the lane ahead of the other one? so that if any time two managers or two clients or various people start fighting with each other, they have to go fight with each other, or at least go fight with each other through the board so it's visible to everybody else. They don't go whisper in people's ears. So if I tell people to do work, I'm an owner of the company, they'll tell me basically in a pleasant and kind way, yeah, whatever. Where's my story card? And what it is a protection for them, so they know what they're always supposed to be working on. And at the end of the week, when we're like disappointed that you worked on this all week and we wanted you to get this done, whose fault is that? The management team. We didn't put the right cards up. That's incredibly powerful for an employee, right? Is it an HR policy? Maybe not in the classic sense, but I tell you what, you want to lead to employee satisfaction? Nothing helps lead to employee satisfaction like knowing what I'm supposed to be doing and having a chance to succeed. And one of the biggest rewards in our entire environment is the opportunity to go stick a green dot on these cards. Anybody ever do that in kindergarten? You put up little stars, or right? It's funny. We were humans then. Now we're taller. I guess we're not human anymore. I mean, who might be excited about putting stickers up there? I assure you, anybody on our team who doesn't get to put a sticker up there at least once during the week goes home really disappointed. It's really weird. So we expend a lot of money making sure we have plenty of dots so people can put them up on the board, because they get positive vibes about it. Now, as we actually produce for our clients, we've actually grown. When we grew, we decided to move out of our facility into a bigger facility where, again, we had one big open room. So we want to be able to see everybody in line of sight. So as the organization grows, we transplant. When we have a bigger team, we now have multiple projects. People here don't have their own desk. They don't have their own computer. They all work at the table of a project. So this is a project. Behind it is another project. Team members are encouraged to learn and diversify their skills by every week we move at least one team member off of your project onto another project, and somebody off of that project onto another project, so everybody gets to rotate. You ever hear cross-training? Okay. The opportunity to grow. Doesn't even matter if you don't have the skills for that project. That might be a Ruby project, and you're on the Java project, you're going to move. Because the reality is, learning a new syntax isn't really that hard when you're sitting with a whole bunch of other peers. This is our secret weapon. Kent Beck describes it in a lovely book. And near as I can tell, very few organizations ever do it because that'd be really hard. I'm okay with that. It means I have a strategic advantage over most of you. We pair program. We not only pair program, we pair program all the time. We pair QA all the time. We pair designers all the time. We're learning how to pair our project managers now. This has been an evolution over the course of 8 years. So these are two high-tech anthropologists, those are what we call our designers. They're up at the board. They have cards. They use story cards just like everybody else, because in our organization, if you're not working on a story card, you're not getting paid. The only things you can work on are authorized tasks. If you're not working on an authorized task and there's nothing to put on your timesheet, you're not getting paid. Oh, good question. Excellent.
So do these people get email from other people in the company?
No, we don't send an email to each other. Matter of fact, my favorite story is about 6 months ago. The marketing evangelist sent out a survey to all the employees through email because it was part of some application to some award. So at our daily stand-up meeting, she had to announce, I've sent email to all of the employees. I would hope that you go look for it, because we don't actually look for email. There's no email being sent back and forth. People on the team don't even get email from the clients. Email is sent to the project manager, who is the only person monitoring for email. Imagine in your life, if you didn't have to look at email, how many hours would that give you each week? It's so simple, but doing it is really hard.
Right.
Right? So no, it would never occur to Mita to send email, well, certainly not to her pair partner, but not even to the people at the other end of the desk, and certainly not to the people at the far end of the room. She would just stand up and yell, hey, I need some help. Can you come over here? Now, if she's polite, she might actually get up and she'd walk. Now, most of the chairs have wheels, so we can do this really cool technology thing where you turn around backwards and you push off with your feet and you roll. But that's also why we want a nice flat area with open walls. We paid them to remove walls from our facility. Okay? It's weird. It's different. Now, it has a very important purpose. In Agile, your goal is to be able to respond to change. Yes? Anybody disagree? So the customer learns something new about their project. They want to change stuff. Right? There's a scope change process in all Agile, and there's some easy way to do it so it doesn't feel like a painful thing. Except, if you ask certain Agile teams, hey, you know what, next week I'd like to go faster. I'd like to do twice as much work next week as I did last week. Or I'd like to do less work. Their answer, no, we've got to keep the team stable. Got to keep exactly the same members on the team. Yeah, but the problem is that business changes include more than just changing what you're building. They actually involve changes to the speed at which you need something done. In our organization, one of the decisions a client makes every week, how many people are we working on the project this week? And they make that by choosing the story cards. I think we want to try and get this much done this week. Do you have enough staff to do that? This means people need to be able to move from project to project, which is one of the reasons we practice every single week. If you only do this when you need to, it doesn't work.